So this week we are looking at characteristics of English language learners. First thing we'll talk about is the role of age in language acquisition and something called the critical period hypothesis. We'll talk about 5 stages of second language acquisition, communication strategies, compensatory strategies, and factors that influence second language acquisition. First off, let's talk about the role of age in acquiring a first language and a second language. Age is a primary difference between first and second language acquisition. First language acquisition happens typically as a child is exposed to language with their parents and other family. We have this hypothesis that talks about second language acquisition. Is there an optimal period to learn a second language? Is there something that happens in the brain that affects when language can be taken on? There's a video here, the story of Jeannie, that I want you to watch. Jeannie's story is very interesting, and I'm not going to give it away. I want you to watch this video. But her exposure to language at different ages affects how she's able to acquire language. So, the role of age. Is there a critical period to acquire a second language? In short, yeah. The brain needs to be stimulated in certain ways. So, approximately prior to age 12, the brain responds to language differently. There's a need for socialization, exposure to language. There perhaps is a biological component. Some researchers talk about something called the language acquisition device that may be a part of the brain that works before this critical period occurs and works less so after. When I was getting my ESL certification, we talked about how before and after puberty things change of what your brain can do. At puberty, your brain has a rush of hormones that may change things a little bit. Can you learn a second language or acquire a second language after puberty? Yes. But perhaps you will not get native-like fluency sound. So the oral sound, the phonological sound, may be affected by this critical period. Regardless of the age at which you start to acquire a second language, there are these 5 stages. In the first stage, we have this silent period, and it can last anywhere from 6 to 18 months, where it appears that the student is not speaking any English. And it may seem like nothing is happening, but actually a lot is happening. When you think about a baby acquiring language, they may not be making words, but they are sponging up sounds and meanings. They're just not producing them yet. Over time, as you go through these 5 stages of second language acquisition, in early production, you start to have individual sounds and words, and then speech emergence, some sentences even. And then intermediate fluency, you can interact on a fairly advanced level, but there are a few limitations still. And then we get to advanced language fluency, which would seem to be peer-like. Later on, we will talk about the WIDA system or framework. This is the assessment that is used for all English language learners in the state of Missouri and around 35 to 38 other states. The levels of the WIDA system closely, not perfectly, but closely match these 5 stages. So when an English language learner is starting to produce language, sometimes they avoid things because they don't have the vocabulary yet. Sometimes they have a hard time saying words. My newcomers had a difficult time with the E and I sounds. So sheet and beach didn't always come out as sheet and beach. And they may avoid topics completely because they just don't know enough about those topics in either their first or second language. Compensatory strategies are what students will do to overcome these frustrations that they might have. For example, they might use circumlocution. I remember an example for me when I was in my French studies at my bachelor's degree. I had to talk about a box made out of glass that had fish in it because I didn't know the word aquarium in French. It happens to be the same word. It's a cognate. Sometimes we will approximate. So we'll say a word that is a similar idea, but it's not the right exact word. Or we'll create new words. Airball for balloon, house hat for roof. Sometimes students will code switch. They will replace a native word for an unknown target word, and they may not even be aware that they do it. One thing that is very, very important for teachers who are checking for understanding to know is that students want to please you. They want to please you so much. So they will answer yes that they understand even though they don't understand. They will smile and they will nod yes. They may say yes. But you have to check for understanding beyond just asking, do you understand? Some of the things that influence students' ability to acquire a second language are their attitude and motivation. We can modify students' attitude by providing them positive experiences. If they have a negative attitude and we don't work with it, it will tend to persist. And also, it can be learned through negative experiences. Likewise, with motivation, if we provide students with tasks that are interesting to them, they have a reason to use the language, so they're more motivated to want to find the language to do the task. If we can provide things that are at their skill level or just above, they're more likely to have success, and that will increase their motivation. And also, you need to think about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. If we're always using a carrot or a stick for motivation, it doesn't last long. We want to build up inside our students a feeling of success. We want to build up their self-esteem legitimately. We want to think of Carol Dweck's growth mindset, rewarding perseverance and effort, not just only rewarding quote, quote, success. So every learner from every city, town, village, or rural area from every country is different. There are lots of things that may affect the ability to acquire or learn a second language. And you can see these listed here. Some of the things that are most prominent, I would say, in my experience, are students' comfort with taking risks, their comfort with making mistakes, students who have experiences that have caused them to have lots of anxiety may struggle more. And then for some students, they have an aptitude for language that's different than other students. They may be able to remember vocabulary more easily, and they can make connections between their first language and second language more quickly. So it really does vary student to student, and we don't want to generalize that all students from this country learn at this rate. Other strategies to think about are metacognitive strategies, cognitive and social affective strategies. Are students able to organize their ideas, prepare, plan for what language they need for the task ahead of them? Can they focus their attention on things that are specific to their needs? And are they aware enough to evaluate themselves for their successes and for areas they need to grow? In these cognitive strategies, you see different skills that are good student skills. Do these students have these skills, or is this something that we actually need to explicitly teach to the students? And from a social affect perspective, are they cooperative with other students, or do they isolate themselves? Do they seek clarification when they don't understand? And what is their self-talk like? Is it positive? I can do this. I haven't got there yet, but I can. Or is it, I'll never get there. This is too hard. I wish I could go back home. We want to validate students' feelings, but also encourage them to move towards positive steps when possible. Okay, that's all for this week. Thank you.